started. Make sure this is working. Cool. And let me make sure my sound is actually working as well, because Siren always complains when I don't double check my sound and nothing can be heard. Okay, cool.
How dare I try to make your stream better?
I appreciate you, Siren. I just like to give you shit.
How dare I? You know what?
Yeah,
Next time
honestly.
I can't hear anything because you have your VR headset set up wrong. I'm just not telling you.
No, I would know. By all means, I appreciate it every time that you do.
Oh, too late.
Wow, fine, whatever. I don't care.
Good.
Fine. Cool. So we're set up. Are you ready, Obrek?
Yes.
All right. So we're picking up on your character in a bit of a stressful time. During the mutiny, Obrek himself really had no idea what was going on. As just a passenger and a voyager aboard the Theros, you'd been really enjoying your time for the most part. You'd heard rumors of some ship being sunk on the opposite side of the ship, but the ship itself is big enough that sort of things can happen on one side or another. And even if it's like a combat situation, you might not have even heard it happening. There's such distance and such a massive deck aboard this vessel. But you heard rumors that something along the lines, they'd been involved in certain contracts to attack the Returned, which are essentially souls that have uh, returned from the underworld and lost their identities. They're practically zombies. But they do sort of sail about up and down the coast, and they're kind of like reavers. And the Thesaurus was for a time just involved in sinking those ships with a contract they'd taken from the city of Akros. And that's something you would have been aware of. But for the most part, you never heard any rumors about any kind of mutiny. So you were just minding your own business and enjoying your time aboard this legendary ship, enjoying your time at sea. And this just suddenly broke out. 1 minute everything was nice and quiet. It seemed a little odd to you that there was maybe less people top deck than normal when suddenly things just erupted and became very chaotic. Just spellcast explosions, combat everywhere. Sort of stumbled out into the midst of what looked like this massive, unnatural storm. There was just fire spreading everywhere, groups of individuals just fighting each other, no real idea of who's on what side or what's happening. You spent some time just trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out, should I lock myself inside? Do I hide? Do I join the fight? Do I help? What do I even do in this situation? Ended up moving out towards the front of the ship, seeking the captain's quarters to see if there was anybody there, some form of leadership that might be able to answer your questions. You had to sort of quietly make your way through. For the most part, everybody was engaged with each other. You were really easily stealthing and avoiding detection from a lot of these people. As you made it to the front of the ship, the scene itself was mind-boggling. There was a massive battle. Certain members of the crew were standing in defense of the captain's chambers, with others moving through and attacking and doing as much damage as they could, trying to get through and bust in what you could assume would be an attack on the captain himself, though there was no sign of the captain. The storm itself became very unnatural. The ship was thrown this way and that, waves so massive to rock a ship of this size, just throwing everything off balance, making it difficult for you to be on your feet, throwing you off your feet at times. Above the captain's chambers, you witnessed this miasmic energy sort of pouring out of a hole, with this cloaked, floating, hovering individual above, channeling this very purple, blackish energy out of his hands, off around underneath the ship. Lightning was crashing everywhere. You'd see water spouts and twisters on both sides of the ship, moving very quickly. You'd see individuals sort of crashing out into the water, and their bodies being thrown up into the sky, just in the flashes of this lightning and this storm, as everything was happening. Just lost in it all, as the ship itself was just lurched into the air, dragged up into the sky, and spit down into this dark, whirlpool of a hole, and you lost yourself for a time. Awakening sometime later, you really had no idea, just soggy and wet, confused on what looked like the deck of the Theros, but just seemed alien to you somehow. Just rolling onto your back, looking up into the sky. The sky was gone, and it was as if you were laying in the sky itself, looking down at the oceans. Up above you, the sky had become the ocean, waves crashing unnaturally, almost defying laws of gravity. Sort of getting to your feet, stumbling about, you'd see many of the crew were dead. Some individuals were stumbling around trying to help others. Um, Many people just unconscious, motionless, or dead along the deck. Stumbling off to the side, looking over, the sea itself was gone, and it would appear the ship was sailing along the sky itself. Looking down into what should have been the water was just like looking into the blackness of space, filled with stars and nebula. Beautiful sight, but just unnatural and extremely strange. You really didn't have a whole lot of time to gather your wits about you. At this point, you were mostly stunned, speechless. As certain things were happening around you, you really lost track of time, and you heard these massive horns from off the sides of the ship and witnessed an attack of what was generally spectral pirate ships, in a sense. They looked very rugged, very torn up, but very looming and imposing, uh, just almost entirely engulfed in green flame. They crashed into the ship at certain points. Uh, Still just trying to get your wits about you, you were stunned to a point of inactivity. Several other crew members you had seen trying to combat these creatures. In a flash, you witnessed a group completely disappear from sight. Uh, really unaware of everything that was going on. Before you knew it, you were in shackles, captured by these spectral, skeletal crewmen, dragged aboard one of their ship, thrown below decks with other prisoners, other members of the Theros. Nobody that you knew, nobody you recognized, and finally just left alone in the dark with your thoughts for a time. You're not really sure how long you were down there underneath this ship, but you started to get your mind back about you. Um, Sort of putting things together. Uh, you, your thoughts were along the lines of did I die? You know, am I dead? Is this the underworld? Is my soul being ferried away? Um, but something didn't feel right about that. You didn't feel dead. It didn't make any sense from your time as an acolyte of Heliod and your knowledge of the underworld in your time on Theros. None of this made any sense. None of it connected, and it didn't feel right. You didn't feel dead. You felt very much alive. Looking around you, the various members of the crew and other voyagers and just normal citizens like yourself who had boarded the Theros for various reasons, just various states of injury and so forth. Also various states of sanity at this point. Everybody looked alive. Everybody felt alive. It's there that you sat down and were able to try and communicate with some members of the crew. For the most part, you had a lot of difficulty getting through to some of these people. There's a lot of discussion of people just, where are we? What's going on? What do we do? Where's the captain? What happened? Several people tried to basically organize and get things in order. One of the individuals that you saw was sort of a younger guy, well-dressed pirate-looking individual, like very eye patch, looked like he was missing a couple fingers on one hand, but he looks like a solid kind of a guy, like he was experienced, very veteran seaman. Tried to organize things, but was usually just shushed and pushed away by these spectral skeletons that seemed to be ferrying you somewhere. But when you guys were left alone, you're able to sort of talk and chat with some of these crew members and get the idea that whatever was happening was related to the captain. It was related to Savas, related to his sort of disappearance of late. You heard rumors from these people finally about this mysterious replacement first mate, that cloaked figure that you'd seen. Uh, Definitely would throw some elements of distrust at you for the captain himself. As sort of the fear of the situation faded away, even though it still stayed there a little stagnant, and you get more of your wits about you and you're able to think about things, you became less confounded, less confused, and more angry, more upset, and victimized in this. Really, and then feeling like you have almost no way out, like no recourse. For the most part, any attempts at organization were just shut down and failed. Most people argued and fought amongst each other. Inevitably, your ship reached its destination. You were ferried off, dragged into a very, very gray, swampy realm. You were led off the vessel onto a small dock. Walking along the dock, you traveled through the swamps for a short time before you reached looming Coliseum. The crew and other prisoners with you were sort of just lined up, one at a time, individually walked into this Coliseum through sort of a quieter side entrance, down some staircases, into what was like a subterranean area beneath. Just very haphazardly tossed into cells by very sort of unofficial looking guards, sort of ratty leather armor. They held spears and swords and such. But the individuals that drew your attention were very, very large, hulking minotaur, glowing red eyes, very unnaturally built from what you'd seen of minotaurs above in Theros, and very, very intimidating. Uh, they were the ones that were sort of keeping anybody from trying anything. But you were thrown into these cells, into these very just dark, dank rooms. Everything smelled terrible down here. Uh, the cells you were thrown into had other inhabitants. There was bodies in the corner that were sort of just shoved aside in various states of decay. Not really sure how long any of them have been dead. Other people were sickly and wounded, just huddled away, especially as the bars split and opened to allow entry of you and the crew. People really just like shied away. Were almost scared of you and scared of anything happening at any moment. Almost just the sound of things moving around scared them and forced them into the dark corners and walls of the cells. You passed a few cells that were very, very tiny. Some individuals who looked maybe more prominent of the crew were thrown into cells on their own or just in pairs of twos. Very, very, very small little boxes, just straight walls, stone walls, no windows, bars straight across. The cell that you were put into was a bit larger. You were in a space of about 40 people. Just smelled terrible. Again, reeked of just death and decay, piss and shit, and just absolutely horrible. Maybe one of the worst places you've ever been in your life. You're shoved into this space. There's really not much room for privacy, and the bars are closed and sealed behind you. And you're just left to sit in the darkness for you're not sure how long. After a time, minotaurs move through, sort of eyeball everybody in your cell, pick people out. They're pointing to individuals. The bars open up. A minotaur that's more grayish in nature, smaller than the one who's pointing people out, but still hulking, massive figure, comes through and starts dragging the people out that he's been pointing to. Some of them were members of the Theros that you recognize from your imprisonment aboard the spectral ship that brought you here. Others are just individuals in rags, tatters, different states of health. Being dragged, some of them allow themselves to be pulled up and are just pushed out of the cell. Others are screaming, terrified, dragged along by these minotaur. Finally, his finger points at you last, Obrek. Do you stand, allow yourself to be escorted? Do you try to resist?
Obrek would dejectedly stand. Think you probably would have seen some people fight before, or not want to go with them. I
Okay.
presume.
Yeah.
Then
some of the individuals, like mostly individuals that you'd seen that weren't members of the crew, these people who have likely been in these cells for God knows how long, were terrified of whatever was happening. They were being dragged, screaming. Others were just mute and basically very defeated in spiritual sense. Just allowed themselves to be pushed out and walked out.
yeah, Obrek would be kind of among the latter. Then he'd just kind of stand up and kind of look around, and
Okay.
he doesn't have a choice in the matter.
Okay. So the sort of one of the larger minotaurs moves around behind you and gives you a nudge. Not really, a very gentle nudge, but enough to push you forward and get you walking. And sort of like launches you in the direction of the open space and the bars that they created for you to exit out into the hallway. So walking along, you don't resist. Minotaurs sort of every now and then give you a shove. You're the one all the way in the back of the line. They picked maybe 15, 16 people out of the cell that are walking in front of you. Single file, up some stairs, into sort of a large, just sitting chamber. It's a square room. There's stone seating that wraps all the way around with a large portcullis at the front of the chamber. The Minotaurs shove you in, and the room itself, the staircase that you had entered, the room in seals itself up and just closes into sheer stone wall. You're left alone in this room for a time. There were two individuals who were in this room sort of on their own. One of them seems to be practicing some sort of spell cast. He's got this pink swirling mistus energy around his hand, and he's projecting it into the other individual's weapon, which is a small short sword. I'm going to give you some images for these two guys. And they're standing just very close to the portcullis. They look like veterans of combat on a level. They sort of notice the group of you enter. You see them scoff and sort of whisper something to each other, laugh for a moment, just continue in their preparations. The one individual is sharpening his weapon, checking his shield, tightening the restraints on his wrists, and making sure everything's ready. The other more sorcerer-looking individual with the staff that's channeling this energy is just sort of like he channels it and lets it die out, channels it again, lets it die out, just making sure he's prepared. For the most part, the individuals that you were led into the room with take seats. Many of them are confused. You see one of the individuals in rags that you don't recognize from the Theros sort of stumble over to those two gentlemen who are preparing themselves. The mage takes one look at this character and just puts his hand on their chest and shoves as hard as he can, sending them backwards like 5 or 6 feet as they roll into the dirt and are just left there crying, not even getting up. What would you like to do here, Obrek? You just want to sit and wait out whatever is happening?
No, Obrek would go over and help up that guy that just got pushed over. Be like, oh, that was not nice of you to do that.
The mage himself just sort of side eyes you for a moment because you and looks away, continues his preparations. The individual that you're helping up looks like an older man who's maybe in his 60s or so. You see he's got wounds all over his body. He's wearing just tattered rag in various places. The wounds look like they've been unnaturally healed. In your knowledge as a cleric, what you see looks very necromantic in nature. Like this individual, immediately you get the sense that it has been killed before and risen. And looking at the wounds and how many of them there are through his shoulders, through his chest and his belly, he's got wounds on his legs and his arms, everywhere. Gives you the sense that he's probably perished in this arena multiple times. He does allow you to help him up. Looks at you for a moment, just absolute terror in his eyes. You also see a bit of confusion, like he really doesn't understand what's going on or where he is.
Uh, Obrek would just kind of, take that all in and go and sit back down, kind of kind of confused because I don't think he's taken a good look at the people around him yet, or at least not up and close.
Okay. So you just help him up and leave him be?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Anything else you want to do here while you're apparently just waiting?
Not really. No.
Okay.
Obrek would just kind of wait
So
for whatever's going to happen.
okay. So you sit down for a time. You hear activity out beyond that portcullis. Sort of looking in that direction, you can see what is clearly an open, sandy like coliseum. I'm going to give you some imagery of the interior as well. You hear like various states of sometimes cheering, just various shouts, a lot of activity out there, as if there's obviously an audience. And you immediately get the sense, obviously, where you are is some sort of gladiatorial space, and you are likely about to face some sort of a fight. Uh, sure, the visibility you have is a little bit obscured. The room that you're in is a bit under the surface level of this Coliseum. Outside the portcullis is a small ramped hill that leads up into the arena proper. But from what you can see, it looks like there's individuals preparing things. They're dragging certain things out of the arena. You can't really tell what, just like hulking forms, maybe bodies, maybe remnants of whatever the last fight left behind. You're left to wait just maybe 20, 30 minutes. Inevitably, you hear silence for a moment. Everything in the outside arena goes quiet. And a few moments later, there's this massive roar and cheer. Almost frightens you in how it just picks up and immediately becomes just echoing through the entire chamber that you're in and flowing out through the Coliseum from the outside. The portcullis starts to creak very slowly, and you hear chains start to roll up above, and it slowly begins to click, 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 and open itself up and raise. Those two individuals who had been preparing walk and stand in front of the portcullis, and as soon as they have ample space, begin to walk out up the ramp. You see some people that you do recognize from the Theros. They take to their feet, sort of look at each other, look back and forth at everybody else, and they also slowly walk out. On the outside, on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, you see them sort of grab what look like rudimentary weapons off some racks there. There's short swords and spears, flails. There's bows with small quivers of arrows. What would you like to do here, Obrek?
Obrek would grab a mace.
Okay.
Or he'd follow them out and grab a mace, preparing for what I can only assume is a battle.
Okay. So yeah, you can definitely grab a mace. Do you want to grab a shield of any kind or anything defensive like?
That would probably be a good idea. Yes.
Okay. So you can grab a small shield and you can throw +2 on your AC.
All right.
So walking up the ramp, you're immediately hit with what is clearly an unnatural sort of magically generated light. Looking around, there's multiple rows and areas of seating that carry up on multiple levels of this Coliseum. That looks like it's maybe 120, 200 feet tall at the moment. The sky above is very unnatural, sort of this shifting grayish black mist and energy. And you see what is clearly magical light peeking through in certain areas and casting down this very unnatural light onto the Coliseum itself. There's various individuals in the stands. Looking about, you see what are mostly just individuals in various rags and very simple clothing. that are cheering and shouting. There's other individuals that are in much nicer fineries. You would take them maybe as dignitaries or politicians in Theros, or just very, very wealthy people. And you see them as well. They have entourages and servants around them, giving them drinks. Some of them are located in VIP boxes that have balconies that overlook the arena in a very prominent way. Also in the stands, you do see other warrior-looking individuals, armored people. Some of them are armed and carrying weapons. Some of them are very well armored with like plate, full sets of armor. In various states, some of it's very well kept, some of it's damaged. Some of these individuals are scarred and wounded, others not so much. But there's a great variety of individuals in these stands, species of all kinds, from all walks of life, all across Theros. But there's something wrong with everything that you're seeing here. Nothing makes sense. You sort of follow their gaze and their cheers, and it's leading up to what is the largest skybox on the northern side of this arena, straight ahead of you as you walk out the portcullis. A massive, maybe fiend or devil-looking individual. I'm going to give you the image here of him. Sort of has his hands raised, and he's looking back and forth over the Colosseum, just taking in all of this praise and cheer that he's getting from the individuals in this arena. And you can immediately identify him as whoever's in charge of this place, obviously. Gives off the presence of a king or a ruler of some kind. But just taking in the sight of him, especially as a cleric, as an acolyte of Heliod, especially, this person looks dark and demonic and wrong. Everything about him just feels vile to you. You have any questions? Anything you want to do here in the arena as you're sort of making your approach?
I think Obrek would definitely be staring at the demon, the leader.
Okay.
He'd probably give a quick prayer towards Heliod, like, "Oh, blessed Heliod, please let me survive this."
As audibly,
yes.
you hear a pretty audible laugh, and a very mocking laugh from one of those guys in the front. Those two veteran-looking individuals, and the mage and the individual with the sword that's lit up. As you sort of finish your prayer, he turns around, just almost like spits, not directly at you, but in your general direction. As he puts his hands down and begins lighting that spell cast up, that again swirling sort of pinkish flame that wraps a bit around his arm, and he sits preparing. But he does look straight up at that skybox with that demonic figure, and gives a very curt, respectful bow. Brings one arm in at his waist and bows in. The other individual does the same. Do you?
Wait, so he bows to Obrek as well, or
The two individuals, the two warriors, those veteran fighters, the one that sort of spit in your direction and his friend.
right.
They bow in the direction of this demonic individual up in his skybox.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
not to Obrek.
Okay, yeah. No, okay. Never mind then. Continue on.
Do you bow or no?
No.
Okay.
Obrek probably would have started he would have started shown anger for probably the first time and since being in the underworld.
Okay.
It's not like the obvious slight to his prayer.
Give me a roll of religion for me.
It's a 6. It'd be a 10 religion.
Okay, that's fine. So sort of taking in this area and looking at the sky, you can also see these massive rusty-looking chains that sort of reach up out of the ground and disappear into that black, grayish, misty energy that makes up the sky. You definitely get the idea that you are in a realm of the underworld known as Agonis, generally reserved for the dishonorable, mercenaries, thieves, backstabbers, betrayers, people who die after living lives of this manner usually end up here. And it sort of sparks a confusion in you, like, well, if I did die, I didn't do anything dishonorable. I don't think this is right for me.
I'm not supposed to be here.
Exactly. But as you take in those thoughts, the fiend up in that skybox lowers his arms, and the arena itself quiets. He turns around, steps back, sits on a very marbled gold and black throne, fashioned and sitting in sort of the central area of his skybox. You see multiple servants rush to him, deliver him food, deliver him drink. There's a small goblin that sort of comes up to him and says something and begins speaking, and he just sort of puts his hand on this goblin's face and shoves him backwards so he falls on his back and rolls away. Leans back, sort of puts his arms behind his head, and nods slowly. From there, the portcullis across from you, underneath him, starts to creak. The chains roll, and the portcullis begins to open in a much smoother fashion on this side. The crowd immediately begins to cheer and roar again. The two veteran individuals sort of look at each other and start to spread out. The mage moves off to the left-hand side, with the shield and sword-bearing fighter-looking individual moving off to the right. Do you want to make any motions here? Do you want to just hold your ground in the center of the arena?
Nope. Obrek would also be moving towards the outer ring of the arena.
Okay.
Probably backing up as well.
Okay. So backing up, you want to stay towards the rear of this group of individuals here?
Yes.
Okay. And you want to move off to your left?
Yes.
Okay. So as the portcullis creaks open, a lot of people are very fearful. They sort of stay in the center, just sort of very shakily wielding their weapons. A couple of these guys look a little sturdier, like they can hold their ground a bit. You notice one who seems very calm. I'm going to give you an image of him very quickly. Just he seems like a very calm demeanor. He's holding a very thin blade. Otherwise, he's dressed differently than some of the other individuals here. He looks a little more well kept. You sort of recognize him from the individuals who were brought from the Theros and imprisoned with you. So you know that he's some member of that crew. But you don't really know him by name or exactly who he is or where he came from. So this drow elf, some artwork there in the chat for you. He's
yes.
sort of he eyeballs a couple of the individuals in the arena. Looks to the side. He makes eye contact with you for a moment, and he sort of gives you a smirk almost as he moves off to the side to where the that mage seems to be getting himself moving slowly, and you get the sense that this guy is like keeping in his shadow almost. He's got some sort of a plan for sure. And as he moves off to the side, the portcullis fully opens, and there's a very deathly silence for a moment. Everything stops. Everybody in the arena stops. You see some of these guests take their seats and lean in. There's a lot of mutterings and whisperings from the seats and from the stands, and everybody's just bracing and staring at that open area, waiting to see what's going to come out. A moment later, you start to hear these loud thumps. Sort of shakes the ground underneath your feet for a bit, kicking some of the sand up off the ground up to about ankle height. Very in sequence, like very loud, booming footsteps of some creature coming out. And from the darkness of the chamber behind that portcullis, you see a massive 5-clawed hand of some dark creature throw itself forward, landing in the sand, dragging itself out. I'm going to give you an image here of what you see. 3 of these creatures take form. One of them comes in from the right, another one drags its way out from the left, and then from behind, the third one has a rider on board. The rider has this massive hooked spear. The creatures themselves sort of have this golden, orange, fire-like energy pulsing through their bodies and traveling from their horns, down their backs, through their arms, into their claws. Every few seconds it pulses and travels through them. Their eyes are glowing orangish red, and they're sort of hooked from behind, and all held in some manner to that main rider. So he's got some sort of leashed connection to all 3 of these creatures. They seem very long, though. They're coiled up, and they start to spread out. The first creature claws its way forward and puts itself sort of on its haunches, leans in, has both of its clawed fists into the ground. The rider looks up, turns around, and faces the individual up in that skybox, that fiend, as the other 2 creatures move off to the left and the right, just snorting and shaking their heads wildly as they eyeball you in the group. What are you doing here, Obrek?
Still kind of staying around the outer ring, waiting to see what exactly. Waiting to see when they attack.
Okay.
I don't think he would. He would not suddenly start attack or run up and attack.
Okay. So there's just a bit of silence for a moment. The 2 creatures that are sort of just manically pacing back and forth along the sides. The one with the rider on its back seems a lot more calm, a lot more stable and steady, just unblinking, staring straight at you and your group of prisoners. The fiend rises from his throne for a moment, looks around at the audience that are cheering and shouting and hollering at him, and he finally raises a hand. And the main beast turns around, the rider nods, brings out that hooked spear off to the side with the hook facing off to the right, sort of slaps the creature on the side of its neck, and it begins to slowly lumber towards your group. The other 2 immediately charge and rush in. You've really got just a moment here to react. Do you want to just allow them to move through and take action, or do you want to do anything preemptively?
Obrek would kind of raise the shield, expecting one of them to run towards him.
Okay. So for the most part, they seem focused on those 2 veterans, the ones on the sides. Yeah. So the one on the right rushes in, and you immediately see a very pink flamish spellcast from that mage as he throws his staff off to the side, reaches out his right arm, and channels this massive spell, which the creature pretty deftly avoids. Slipped off to the right, throws itself, and runs along the side wall of the Colosseum for a moment before it just hops back off, lands on the ground, begins charging again at that spellcaster. The one on the left immediately dives forward, leaps into the air, probably a good 20 to 30 feet, propelling itself forward about 60 or 70 feet, landing and skidding to a stop in front of the fighter individual. His blade still giving off that more electrical shock, magical energy that his sorcerer friend had attached to the blade prior to entering the battle. He brings up the shield and sort of deftly deflects one of the arms of this creature, and throws his blade off into the side and begins sort of going back and forth, making contact and just deflecting blows and making an engagement with the creature there. The one in the center, as these 2 veterans are sort of engaged with the other 2 beasts, one in the center sort of eyeballs a few people and immediately taps the side of his mount and rushes forward. You see one person just very shakily with a sword lifted backing away get crushed underneath the hands of one of these creatures. Sort of squeezes his claws around the body and throws it off to the side as he continues running forward. Some of these guys seem to start poking spears at these things. You can see they're clearly not combatants. They have no idea what they're doing. An individual about 15 feet from you just has his shield and a very, very rusty, terrible-looking short sword, is cowering, but does manage to sort of deflect the tail of this creature as it swings around, connects with the shield, almost accidentally, takes an airy swing at it without really any force. Anything you want to do?
Is there anyone nearby me? I think Obrek would try to. He might even yell, "Group up!" You know, they can't yeah, he'd
Okay.
say group up.
Roll persuasion.
That is going to be a 10.
Okay. So yeah, you give the shout and try to gather individuals, but there's so much chaos in the field. You see one person sort of look sideways at you, um, make eye contact, and sort of he appears like he wants to respond and begins to make his way towards you. As this hooked spear comes in and connects with the back, you see him sort of throw his arms forward and drop. He had two swords in his hands. He drops the swords immediately as his body is lifted off the ground by the hooked spear of that rider and is flipped over into the air onto the opposite side of the creature that he's riding and thrown off to the ground. The beast then sort of turns its head and looks directly at you. Takes sort of this big lumbering swing, brings its arm back, its left arm, and throws it forward in sort of a hooked-like attack. What's your AC with that shield? You added 2?
13.
13. Okay, so connects with you, drives you back, does 5 points of damage. As you take the hit, you sort of are reeled off to the side. You look over, you see that drow elf, very patiently walking. This mage character is throwing spell after spell after spell at this creature. The drow elf is just sort of biding his time, moving very, very slowly. He has his blade drawn, but kept pretty close to his side, and he's moving around closer to the wall, seemingly like he's waiting for something. On the opposite side of the arena, the other fighter is not doing too well. Looks like he's taken a couple hits. He's got big gashes and wounds in his side and in his arm. Looks like he's done some damage to that creature as well, but he's not doing as well as his sorcerer friend here. What would you like to do, Obrek?
Is there a way for me to cast Cure? Oh no, that's touch. Never mind. I'd say Obrek's looking at the drow. Is Obrek close to the drow?
Yep, it's about 25, 30 feet, sort of just slowly moving away.
Obrek would yell at the drow and be like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
He looks back at you for a moment and sort of just puts a finger up to his lips like a shh, and keeps walking.
I say Obrek would have to do something at this point. He does have spell slots available, right?
Yeah, you have everything available. Yep.
Okay, then Obrek would cast a guiding bolt at the nearest beast.
Okay, so that main center beast with the rider.
Yep.
Okay.
It's been a while. Do I just roll a d20 for strike or to hit?
Yep, it'd be a ranged spell attack. So it's just to roll a d20 and then add your for cleric your your spell attack modifier, which I think is your charisma, or is your wisdom?
Wisdom.
Wisdom.
So that would be 16.
Okay, that's a hit. Go ahead and roll your damage. I believe it's 4d6. Yes.
6. That is going to be 12.
Excellent. Okay, and your next attack against this, you're going to have advantage, so note that as well.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, you fall back just a bit, sort of, taking the indication from the dry elf. You have no idea what the hell he's doing, but you turn back and finally start engaging. You throw that guiding bolt. Connects directly to the side of the head of the creature, sends it stumbling backwards. also draws the ire of the rider. The rider takes a swing with that massive spear, spins it around, the hook side going away, and the sharpened spear edge making a slash towards you. But you're able to deflect it off with that shield. The beast itself takes a massive bite at you. You see the head sort of swing in. My God! And with my first natural one of the night, of which there's often many, comes in, takes a big bite. You're able to sort of shift off to the side, and its weight is thrown just a bit too much, and it sort of just loses its footing on its left knee and slides off to the ground, crashing over. You hear this a shout from the rider as well, as he's sort of thrown off the back and rolls back onto his feet on the opposite side. I'm going to give you there. You sort of have an attack. It's sort of belly is shown to you now. If you want to make an attack at advantage with that guiding bolts bonus.
Okay, I'd strike it with the mace then.
Okay. Melee attack and D20 adds strength.
Okay. That is going to be 11 without the advantage. Or yeah, it's just an 11 strike.
That's so advantage. You roll twice and take the higher. Did you? That's your high roll? Yeah. So advantage, you roll twice and you just take the higher of the two. Disadvantage, you roll twice and take the lower.
18.
18.
That is going to be 20 then.
That's a hit. There you go. For the mace, you roll a d6 and add your strength modifier.
Okay, that's going to be 6 then.
Okay. So you come in, you take a quick strike as you feel the advantage of having knocked it over with that guiding bolt. You see another couple individuals, more of these like tattered rag, sort of take the note and see you sort of winning this fight, and they rush in and they start poking at the belly with its spears as well. One of them punctures and makes it through. The other one can't quite get through the hide of this creature. You can clearly tell these guys don't really know how to use these weapons. The creature pushes back, gets back on its feet in sort of a very enraged manner now. You see the rider shouting at it, trying to get its attention so he can get back on, but he's unable to get back on the back of it. The creature has sort of lost the attention, and he's sort of angrily pulling on the reins. It's distracting the other two creatures that are attached to him as well, and he's more frantic at this point. He doesn't really like being on the ground, you can tell. Off to the left side, that drow elf is slowly getting closer to that mage, who's still firing spell after spell, sort of locked in an engagement. Every now and then, he'll spin his staff very deftly, and you'll see this magical shield sort of appear and deflect an attack of the creature as he follows through with a spell at the creature, which they seem to be sort of going back and forth without doing much damage to each other. The opposite side of the arena, as you look over and take in what's happening, you see that fighter down on one knee. He has his shield raised up in the air, which takes a blow from the creature there and just shatters the shield and pushes him partially down, prone into the sand. It then lifts up its foot and just stomps directly onto his back. You see him lose his sword, goes rolling off, and that sizzling magical energy dissipates as it skitters away from him. The creature then just steps off and just bites down, completely severing this guy in half, and begins enjoying a meal. And you hear sort of a very, like, not angry or sad noise from the sorcerer, but a very disgruntled growl as he continues his bout. The beast itself takes another swing at you with its claws, one from the left and one from the right. The first one you're able to avoid, the second one does hit, and does 6 points of damage.
Right.
And
right.
Would you like to retaliate?
Yes. I think Obrek would fire off another guiding bolt.
Okay. Same creature?
Yep. That is going to be. That's it. It's going to be 27.
Okay, that's a hit.
Yep.
Roll some damage.
That's going to be 11.
Okay. So again, strikes the creature. This time you get him like right between the eyes. Shakes his head as he sort of brushes off the spell, but you can see the singe on him, so you're doing some damage. You have advantage on your next strike. You see the rider rushing around to the side. Seems to have given up trying to get the creature's attention. He swings that massive spear around, cuts through two more of the individuals that were fighting with you, severing the arm of one and cutting clean through the neck of the other. You hear a shout off to the side, and you see that drow elf has moved in from the back and driven his sword clean straight through the chest of that mage. You watch him kick forward and propel the mage forward towards the beast that sort of reaches up an arm and begins to sort of take a swing at him. The opposite side, the other beast has sort of just finished its meal and is now lumbering towards the engagement with you and the other guys. The rider moves about. It seems like he's sort of angling to get an attack on you. He sort of identified you as one of the larger threats here. And the creature takes another bite, but isn't quite able to get you. You're able to sort of swiftly move off to the side. What would you like to do?
Going to attack the creature that I had a advantage with.
Okay.
Just a swing of the mace. That is a nat 20.
Nice. So that's a critical hit. So roll damage and double it.
That is going to be 10 damage.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, you swing through, you cut right into the nose of this thing. Sort of still was distracted by your spellcast and missed the attack. You're able to swing back through and take that missed advantage and strike right into the nose of the thing, forcing its head down into the ground, clearly pissing it off. You see its sort of eyes glow even hotter as it turns and tries to take a couple swings at you. Swings twice. The first one you're able to avoid. The second one, you see that orange energy sort of pulse through right as it makes contact with you. Gets you on the opposite side from the deflection, and you feel almost burned at the point that it made contact with you. It does 8 points of damage. But off to your side, taking stock of what's going on over there, you see that creature has already reached in, just completely bites down right onto the head and upper torso of that mage as the staff is dropped to the ground. You see the drow elf disappear behind the creature somewhere. On the opposite side, the other creature is now getting close. It's moved in behind a couple of the other individuals who turned around and tried to fight it. The other prisoners are just swept aside, stomped and clawed to death as it pushes forward to try and join this fight. What would you like to do?
Oh, now is a good time to start despairing, right? No, Obrek is going to fire off one more guiding bolt at the creature that he had critted.
Okay. Go ahead and roll it.
That is going to be a 17.
That's a hit.
And 19 damage.
Oof. Okay, so another really clean strike. As the creature made contact with you, it seemed to try to take advantage and come back in for another attack, and you use the opportunity to duck in off to the side and fire another bolt right into its belly area. Scorches straight through. You see you take almost a clean chunk out of this thing as the sort of charred remains of it fall over and it dies. The rider comes around the corner and sort of in a rage takes a swing at you with that spear. It comes swinging wide, deflects off the shield of one of the last remaining people around you, last remaining prisoners. There's only 3 of you left, with you included, aside from that drow elf who sort of disappeared over to the side. Deflects off the shield just almost accidentally again as the spear swings through, cuts in your direction, makes contact, and does 6 points of damage. He pulls on the reins, and that other creature comes bounding forward to join him and engaging with you. But on the opposite side, as you're about to sort of make your next action, you hear a howl, and that other creature, the third creature that the drow elf disappeared behind, you can see he sort of grasped the reins, gives a really strong yank. Whew. And with a nat 1 on a saving throw, the rider is pulled completely off of his feet, falling face first into the sand, pretty close to you. The drow elf then sort of uses it, pulls the tug in the opposite direction, and throws himself up onto the back of one of these creatures and begins trying to rein control of it. What would you like to do?
Go attack the guy that just fell off. Yeah, the rider.
You have advantage.
Or do I?
He's face down, prone on the ground.
Okay.
Yep, you have advantage.
Yeah. Okay. That is going to be a 16 strike.
Okay. That's a hit.
Okay. It's going to be 5 damage.
Okay. And in the state that he's in, you have an opportunity to go for a killing blow. Do you want to try and take this guy out?
Yeah, it's going to smash his head with a mace.
Okay. Roll d20 strength bonus.
That's going to be 8.
Okay. So you bring the mace down. Go ahead and roll damage.
That's going to be 6.
Okay. So he sort of is able to push himself off to the side, but you connect with his sort of lower shoulder and back, and you do some damage to him as he sort of drags himself away pretty fearfully now. The other creature begins lumbering over. You see it sort of loom above you. As you were focused on this guy, it got really close. Probably like 6 to 8 feet above your head. You see its mouth just like drooling wet, wide open, with many rows of teeth. Begin to just swoop down to take a bite right out of your face. But as it's about to make contact, that third beast comes in and crashes with a shoulder crash into it. Not really intentionally, but more of like it's still struggling with that drow elf, and he sort of threw its weight, and it's crashed into that second beast. What would you like to do?
Still, Obrek is going to continue going after the rider to finish him off.
Okay.
So he's lost a little bit of it's kind of got a little bit of the rage going on there.
Absolutely.
Or, the focus.
Yeah, go ahead, another roll at advantage.
That is going to be 14.
Yeah, that's a hit. That's a hit.
That is going to be 8 damage.
Okay. How do you want to kill him?
Obrek's just going to, two-hand, throw his shield down, two-hand the mace, and just, a full swing right on his head.
Okay. Yeah, he's sort of like crawling away from you, barely trying to get on his feet, but he slips up, falls to the side, losing his sort of grip on the ground with his arm, and you're able to use that moment to swing that mace down and just crush the head and skull of this guy. The other beast you see now trying to like very confusedly fend off its ally, who's being ridden by that drow. You hear a lot of boos from the audience now. A lot of very like dark sounds, and you see up above in the sort of seating box, the fiend get up, look very dejectedly at the arena. You see him lift an arm up, and that little goblin that he had shoved over earlier comes running over. He lifts up the goblin by like sort of the back of its neck, almost like he would a puppy, brings him up to his level, and you see him angrily sort of shout something and toss the goblin off to the side. The goblin disappears outside the chamber. The drow like yanks in the opposite direction now, and is continuing to just pull this creature. He's trying to control it as best he can, but he's having a lot of trouble. But he is at least successfully keeping it off its feet and drawing the attention of that third creature. What would you like to do?
Let's see here. I say Obrek would cast a kind of take a moment to realize what he's just done.
Okay.
Kind of, you know what? Obrek's just gonna kind of stand there.
Lost in it.
This is, he this is the first time he's ever killed anyone, and he's not really sure of what's going on anymore.
Okay. So yeah, Obrek takes pause. He's sort of lost. Like he just in a fury killed this man. He's probably never done anything like that, I assume, in his life.
No.
I loses track. Just sort of loses himself. Just stares at what's left of this guy. As the battle's happening around him, he loses himself for a minute. Here's a massive shout from the side, and sees that Drow Elf has driven his blade straight into the back of the head of this creature, and sort of kicked off the back. Begins rushing towards you, sort of frantically pointing off to your left and his right. You shakily sort of get your wits about you, look off to the side, and you see that third creature coming in with this massive sweep. As it does, the drow draws in front of you, just skids to a stop, brings the blade up, and sort of knocks the clawed fist of the creature away, sort of saving you just in time. He looks at you for a moment. Says, "Hey, you want to get your wits about you?" He very quickly gives you a smack to the face, and then another backhand on the opposite side. He's like, "You want to get your wits about you?"
Yes. Sorry.
Well,
And like Obrek kind of like readies himself again.
do me a favor, distract this goddamn thing, would you?
Yeah, right.
He sort of like very quickly dodges off and moves off to the opposite side. What would you like to do?
Obrek has one more guiding bolt that he has. He will fire that off.
Okay, roll it.
That is going to be a 26.
Okay. Very solid hit. Roll some damage.
16.
Nice. And so yeah, you drive the bolt forward, clips the creature in the side. It sort of was starting to look in the direction of that drow, and your bolt connects with the opposite side of its head, scorching a portion of its face and very close to its right eye. It looks over at you and just snorts this very orange-like energy, almost like the same energy that's coming from its eyes. Pounds its fist into the ground a couple times and begins to lumber towards you in a charge. But in that moment, you see the drow from the opposite side, having sort of completely circumvented the creature. As it's about to make contact with you, leaps up into the air, takes a real nice swing of his blade, and with a nat 20, I might add, comes through and connects right with the side of the neck of the creature. Throws it off its feet, sends it skidding off to the side away from you, and does very significant damage. It falls to the ground, sort of still alive, but you can see barely. It's got a massive wound in its neck. Do you want to finish it off?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Obrek's going to run at it. It's just, do I roll just damage, right? Or
yeah, just damage. You got to hit on this one. You don't have to roll hit.
Okay, that is going to be 6 damage.
Okay. How do you want to finish it?
Obrek's going to bring the mace down on one of his eyes.
Okay. So yeah, you bring the mace down. It crushes the eye of the creature. As you sort of break into the skull of it, and that eye dissipates, the inside, the hole that you sort of left and made, you see a very nebulous star-like visage, almost the same visage that you'd seen when you looked down at what should have been the sea when you first arrived in the underworld. Very godly like sky. And looking into it, you lose yourself for a second as it's beautiful in nature, but strange and unusual. And for a moment, you see sort of twinkles in the stars that's like left in the gaping hole of this damage that you did. And you feel an answer, almost like your prayers were answered. You get the semblance of what would be the starry resemblance of Heliod in that hole, and gives you a little bit of more of a sense of courage. Bringing yourself back, you realize the arena is very quiet. The drow elf is sort of stumbling to the side, joining you, looking around very nervously at the arena. Taking things in, it looks like you and the drow are two of the last ones standing. There's only one more individual, and the last person is that old man that you had helped up. No idea how he survived the thing. He's sort of on his knees. He has no weapons. He's just glancing around in more of shock than anything else. Do you want to do anything here?
Obrek's just gonna Obrek's just like he's letting the adrenaline wash over, just under his breath, just praise Heliod. I think we made it.
He sort of looks back and he's like, I don't really have a great feeling about this. And he looks up to that skybox, and that fiend is still standing there. Everybody, every eye in this arena is sort of staring at him as he raises his arm, fist out and forward, brings his thumb out. You get the idea that you're absolutely about to be judged. He sort of begins to turn it downward, and you see from the outside this sort of black grayish energy, and several minotaur materialize from the walls of the arena. 1, 2, 6, 8, 12, until you're surrounded by dozens of these things. All of them those huge, lumbering, glowing, red-eyed creatures that you'd seen during your imprisonment. Begins to turn his thumb downward, when suddenly he stops for a moment and looks to the side, and you see that goblin rushing up. You hear him very audibly from the distance he is growl angrily at that goblin, but he stops. The goblin says something very quickly to him, and you see him close his eyes, almost shake with anger, and then immediately strangely calm himself, look back to you, makes eye contact with you for a moment, and with the drow, slowly the thumb spins back up and points up. The crowd begins screaming, mostly boos. Very like they don't enjoy it. They wanted to see you die. You get the impression. Lots and lots and lots of boos and jeers. Things are being thrown into the arena. Bits of food and mugs from drinks and ale, all being tossed onto the ground, getting nowhere close to you. But it's a very imposing thing. All of those minotaur then look up, seeing the thumb come up, and step back slowly before they dematerialize back through the walls that they had come from. And the portcullis slowly clinks open that you had come through. Would you like to do anything here, or would you like to just exit the arena?
Yeah. Obrek is just going to like kind of chuckle, like look at the drow, and then walk towards the exit.
The drow sort of looks around. He's backing away slowly. So I don't know exactly what happened, but I think your prayer might have been answered there. I heard you mutter earlier. Say we're probably not out of this yet, though.
No, but made this far.
What's your name, friend? Were you on the ship when we were taken?
Hi. Name's Obrek.
I'm Frederick.
Obrek Fretinus. Oops, sorry. Fretinus or
Frederick.
Frederick?
Yes, with an I, multiple I's, if you would.
I'll remember that. Thank you. Thank you for the save back there. Well, I don't think I'd be standing here if not for you.
I could probably say the same about you. I'm glad at least one of us was a dependable fighter out here. It looks like they threw us in here to die.
You could say that again.
Sort of walk through the portcullis down the hill, as you exit the area. The old man is sort of stumbling and chasing after you guys, following along as fast as he can, still very shocked and stunned. He's about 6 feet behind you. You enter that area that you had come into from the front. The portcullis closes behind you as the old man sort of stumbles down the hill, straight out of breath. Clearly, see a bit of joy on his face, but see that same misery sort of lures behind, like, oh, I made it through one of these, like sort of a shock. Frederick sort of looks at him and back at you. It's like, I assume we're going to be here for a while, but you seem like a dependable fighter. If something happens and we have a means of escape, can I depend on you?
Obrek kind of, nods. Yeah, if we get to escape.
Well, I happen to have some very strong-willed friends. I have a feeling they'll be coming for us. They managed to avoid capture. So if you would just quietly tell as many people as you can while you're imprisoned here, anybody that you recognize from the ship and anybody that wants to get the hell out of here, tell them to keep their mouths shut, but be ready and wait for a signal, okay?
Obrek nods.
All right, so as you sort of finish that, the staircase behind you, the wall comes back in and creates an open stairwell for you to move back out. One of those Minotaur comes lumbering up, big axe in his hand, steps to the side, just gives you a quick nod with his head and beckons you to enter back down that staircase.
Obrek will comply.
Okay. Leads you back down a hallway. Minotaur sort of following behind you. Frederick is in the back this time. You hear him get shoved every now and then, sort of give like a little jeer back at the Minotaur, who doesn't seem to care. As you reach the cells, from the back, you hear one open up and you turn around. You see him sort of shove Frederick into one side and the bars close up. And on your right-hand side, bars open up and he beckons you to enter. Any resistance, or are you just going to walk right in?
Just gonna walk right in.
Okay. He moves past, those bars seal behind you. You see his eyes glow for a moment. He gives a big sniff in the air as he looks around, raises his hand, and a barrier, a very dark, blackish, magical barrier, seals your entire cell from sight, leaving you in almost pitch black darkness. You're left in there for what feels like quite some time. Every so often, you hear the sounds of battle up above. Cheering, booing, the howls of people obviously dying, the sounds of creatures that you've never heard in your entire life, many of them sounding magical and unnatural in nature. Every now and then you hear from the cells around you people being pulled out, drawn, dragged, probably into combat. And then things are very silent for a couple of days, you feel like. Every now and then the small chamber opens up and this very nasty gruel like slosh is just thrown into what's like a trough, a very like crude wooden trough on the ground on the one side of the cell. Everybody rushes through to try and get to the food. Are you going to eat anything while you're here?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Obrek would try to get food, some food as well, but he wouldn't be greedy about it.
Okay. It's a very nasty, like it smells like shit. It's like one of the worst things you've ever seen in your life. It's got chunks of God knows what in it. As you eat it, you feel little bits of bone that you got to spit out every now and then. It's disgusting, but you know that you got to keep your strength up if you're gonna survive in this place. And every moment you're expecting the next fight, but that moment never comes. You're just left in this cell for quite some time. Your ability to keep track of time sort of disappears. You're left in darkness for a very long time. You're not really sure how many days have gone by, but you hear shouting, more chaos in the halls on the outside. You can't see any of it. That barrier is sort of keeping it up. But you hear several of the people get up in the cell that you're in and sort of move up to the bars and look around, try to identify what's going on. Do you do anything?
Obrek would, try to, see what's happening.
Okay.
Or,
moving up to the barrier, roll perception for me.
That is going to be 17.
Okay. So you move to the barrier, you try to get what you can out of things. You see the massive shapes of what is like those Minotaur rushing down the hallway. You see them sort of like moving very quickly, their hooves pounding into the ground. Every now and then you see the smaller form of what are likely those armed guards that you'd first seen, the less prominent guards that are stuck down here. Every now and then you see one of them rush off. They're all moving in a specific direction off to your right-hand side, down the hall somewhere. After 2, 3, 4 minutes, you begin to hear the clang of weapons striking, the sounds of spellcast, shouts of what is absolutely combat of sublevel. You get the idea that this is what your drow friend was speaking of. Whatever's happening is happening right now.
Obrek would probably be like, if to any, there are other people in the cell, right?
Yes.
Like, oh yeah, then you'd be like, this is what I was saying. It's a sign.
Roll persuasion.
That is going to be 15.
Okay. So a few people like actually do get up. For the first time since you've been here, it's been very solemn and depressing. But you see a bit of hope in some of the eyes of some of these people as they hear what's going on. They rush up to the bars and try to see what they can. For a moment, it's just combat. It's just the sounds of raging combat and fighting, which sounds like a good ways off in the distance. You begin to hear a noise behind you. The stone behind you begins to pound every so often, almost rhythmically. Turning around and glancing in that direction, you see the sand sort of shake in multiple locations. It starts to kick up off the ground. From the ceiling above, rolls back down into the room, and the wall begins to chip in places and crack and open up, like something is pounding from the outside. Anything you'd like to do here?
Probably kind of, back away farther from the wall. Then maybe guys should probably move. Something's happening.
A lot of the individuals sort of like move to the side. Everybody sort of redirects their attention away from that barrier and towards this wall. 5, 6 seconds, you hear that pounding and pounding as pieces of the wall start to come off, and then very suddenly there's an eruption, cavernous boom that just rocks the whole room that you're in, almost throws you off your feet as the wall itself just breaks and crumbles. Big chunks of stone rolling forward from what behind you now finally see is a tunnel of some kind. You see 2 individuals there and a very small cannon set up that was clearly firing shot after shot into the wall behind you through roughly what is probably 40 feet of stone. You see standing your drow friend with another individual, a woman in very rugged looking armor with very interesting looking weapons. She has a blade with a stone that sort of rotates amidst the metal of it. Fixes and floats along and spins consistently. The drow sort of walks inside, looks at everybody, says, "Hello, I will be your rescuer today. Obrek, if you would please join me. Everybody else, step off into our luxury tunnel." The woman herself's like, "Frederick, shut the fuck up. Please just get everybody through." He nods, like, "Come on, let's go." And he steps aside. He comes over to you. He's like, "Obrek." He brings some things to you. So I believe these are yours. It's all of the possessions that you had from the Theros.
Okay.
So we visited a couple places on our way, gathered some of our items back. I believe these are yours. Hands everything to you.
Obrek. Yeah, Obrek gives him a good grin and pass him. Thank you, friend. Blessings to you. This is wonderful.
So I can't say the journey's going to be easy, but my friends here have a vessel that they sort of hijacked. We have a way out. After we get out of here, we don't have a whole lot of plans, but we'll improvise. As long as we get the hell out of this Coliseum. You good with that?
Agreed. Let us make haste.
So as you move out, the woman nods to you, like, "Frederick, this the one you were talking about?" He looks at her, like, yeah, this guy's pretty good. Handled himself pretty well. She looks to you. It's like, my name is Shalir. I'm a lieutenant with Admiral Ripley Vance. Do you know who she is?
Obrek, like, it's probably been a while since he's heard that name, but he would have heard that, correct?
Yeah, you would have known Vance, at least in your time on the ship. Even just like living in Theros, you've probably heard her name at least once or twice.
Then yeah, Obrek would like kind of think about it for a second, like yeah, I've heard of her.
Well, she's awaiting us at a very strange dock in a very nasty swamp, and I'd like to get the hell out of here as soon as possible. So if you would please join us.
Obrek just continues to nod and yes, let's move.
So everybody begins sort of like running and rushing through the tunnel. As you're rushing along, she starts to sort of talk to you. She's like, "Hey, we don't have a lot of people that are fully combat ready. Can I depend on you to fight if we need you?"
But of course.
Very well. Just can you follow orders, okay?
Obrek just goes, yes. Just stare there, yes, as well as I can.
Good. I expect your best. As you sort of like rush through the tunnel, you come probably 400 feet just running through the darkness. Every now and then there's a torch sort of dropped on the ground, obviously from areas that they were pushing through and digging for God knows how long to get to you guys. You push out through the area and you reach sort of very wet, mushy ground, very swampy. Like you see thick foliage and trees of the area that you've been walked through. This area itself is a little more rugged. She reaches the back and steps aside. Uh, from the sky, you see sort of this massive shadow blow over top of you, swirling like the mists and the energy of this sky around. As it swings off and you lose sight of it. You see a man step off from the side out of the trees, sort of very Viking-looking guy. He's got this beautiful steel battle axe, horns all over him, and these glowing orange tattoos that run down from the sides of his head down his arms. As he steps outside, sort of in front of the tunnel, this massive red dragon looks ancient, crashes down into the ground behind him, lumbering up, glowing with those same tattoos on this man, all the way down its neck and along its belly and body. I'm going to give you an image here. He looks to Shalir, nods. He's like, "Oh, well, you actually pulled it off, huh?" She nods to him. Says, "Yeah. The rest of the crew is setting up that distraction. We're all supposed to meet back at the ship. Anything else you need from us?" He shakes his head slowly. "No, I'll take it from here." He backs off a bit, nods to Frederick and to Shalir, hops up on the back of that dragon, and they disappear into the mist above. Shalir looks to Frederick and to you. She's like, "All right, follow me." Shouts to some of the other prisoners that were with you, about 30 to 40 people, to gather up, and they all sort of move along the line as you all run through the swamps. She seems to know where she's going. You can see she's tracked her locations on the trees. She's got little things pinned in multiple locations. She's eyeballing for them and following a pathway back out. You're running for a while. You're starting to get pretty winded as you finally reach what looks like a very narrow dock. The mists are very thick here. You can barely see 2-3 feet in front of your face. The group of you run down the dock until you reach what is a gangplank that leads up onto the deck of one of those spectral ships that you'd been imprisoned on. The ships that brought you here. Shalir steps to the side, and you finally see some other individuals move forward. You see a tiefling woman, a water genasi male. I'm going to post some images in here for you. And an elvish woman as well. If Discord will let me upload these. There we go. From the deck of the ship, you hear a shout. And you look up there and you see somebody who's clearly seen a lot of combat recently. She's got blood all over her weapons. Massive cannon on her shoulder that sort of pulls off to the side every time she moves. And really beautiful, adorned looking blade. She steps up to the wall, looks at all of you, and shouts something to Shalir, who nods and directs you onto the ship. Would you like to board? Obrek.
Oh yes. Obrek almost looks a little bit awestruck at seeing what's before him.
So,
But yes, he'll board quickly.
so rushing up to the deck, everybody else joins you on board. Frederick sort of puts a hand on your shoulder. He's like, "Hey, take a rest for a moment, catch your breath. We're not really sure what to expect as we head back out into the water. Okay?"
All right. Thank you again, friend.
Oh, I'm gonna have to thank you in a little while because I think we're all gonna be pulling our weight very soon. He steps off and he starts moving towards the back of the ship, where you see a much taller Goliath woman steering the vessel. I'm going to give you an image of her as well. Another individual that you recognize from the deck of the Theros, somebody who like sticks out like a sore thumb, very ominous looking woman that people called the Drowner Queen. You're not exactly sure who or what she is, but she's very intimidating in any sense. She got that massive battle hammer just sort of on its head, with the hilt of it resting along the front of the decking, and she's steering the vessel. As it begins slowly backing away, have been pushed off. Several other people climb up back onto the deck. As you look around, you see they rescued probably maybe 200 people. There's crowds of people gathered towards the front of the ship. You see stairs moving down, looking down into the direction below deck. You see all different sorts of people, women and younger individual, older men, younger men. Some of them look like soldiers. Some of them look very weak and frail. A lot of them have wounds, similar to one of those individuals that you've seen that appear like they've been revived multiple times. But whatever happened here, they pulled off one hell of a rescue, and they pulled not just members of the Theros crew out, but several civilians and individuals who were just trapped in that Coliseum as well. Ripley herself steps up the stairs and moves up behind the steering Goliath, begins giving orders. What would you like to do here on the deck of the ship?
Obrek would just kind of look around, take it all in. I don't think he would approach anyone to talk or anything.
Okay.
Because he, honestly, I don't think he's still a little bit shocked that he's not in the cell anymore.
Right. Okay. So Obrek's sort of like gathering himself. Do you want to stay above deck?
Yeah.
Okay. So you stay above deck. You move off to the side. As your ship begins sailing, you're turned around. You still hear shouting in the back from where you came. There's still combat happening back there. You're not sure exactly what's going on. If anybody was left behind, or if whatever's happening is just maybe like a leftover riot of some kind. Obviously, they did some damage to the Coliseum. You didn't see heads nor tails of that deviant fiend individual who was in charge. But it does sound like there's massive combat happening behind you, as the sound slowly fades as you sail away into this thick mist, which just becomes thicker as you sail off into this dark realm, to the point where you can barely see your own nose on your face. You still want to just remain above deck and hang out up here?
Yes.
Okay. Every now and then you see from behind you somebody from the crew rushing up, rushing down. If you mill about a little bit, you can clearly see Ripley at the wheel. She has some sort of device that she's holding. It emits a blue energy. Every now and then it pulses up into the air and sort of spins and moves off in a direction. She seems to be following it. You're sailing for probably hours. Enough time for you to sort of calm down and gather yourself and feel a little safer, finally. Every now and then you hear a shout from somebody above, clearly a lookout of some kind, and looking off in the distance, You see sign of what is obviously one of those spectral ships, very like green glow, almost a flame in the distance. Your ship is completely doused of light of any kind. Obviously, it's sailing very stealthily through these waters. And the individuals that are sort of managing the sails and keeping this thing afloat, you can tell clearly know what they're doing. They're very expertly navigating these waters. Every time they spot even the slightest hint of one of those vessels, they're able to sort of duck off, move along very quietly, drift, and avoid contact. You still just want to hang out above and keep rolling?
Yep, correct.
Okay. So you finally hear, after maybe another couple hours, a couple shouts of excitement. You see the elvish woman with the dual blades that I'd shown you rush up and begin speaking with Ripley, who nods. Frederick looks around for a moment and he finally spots you. He's like, Obrek, come on, up here.
Obrek will jog on over.
Okay. So stepping up, everybody sort of takes you in for a moment. The Goliath woman, like, barely holds a glance at you for a second before she just keeps her focus forward, still holding the wheel, guiding the vessel. Ripley looks to you and nods. Says, well, Frederick tells me you're dependable in fight. Is that right?
You could say that, yes. I know how to hold myself.
Do you know where we are?
Kind of shakes its head. No, not specifically, no.
Well, I'm sure you have your assumptions. They're probably right. You're in a realm of the underworld.
Awful.
Frederick sort of like giggles a bit when she says it. Like, I didn't really believe in this sort of shit, but now that we're here, I'd rather not be. He looks to you and says, Captain here, she's got a bit of a plan. Ripley holds up the device that she's got. There's this thing here. It's tracking an old friend of mine. Sort of, you can call it a little bit of a safe move that I made before we left. I'm sure you witnessed the mutiny. I don't know if you took part in it. I don't care. I don't care what side you took. If you took any, it doesn't matter to me anymore. But either way, I've been keeping tabs on an old friend named Galen V3. You know who he is?
Shakes his head. No. No, can't say do.
He's an asshole. And responsible for the mutiny that took place on the ship that, in any case, I don't know what the captain was thinking or what he was doing, but that mutiny didn't help the situation, and I'm not a big fan of what went down. Since we were able to escape capture, we secured this vessel from those asshole spectral whatever they were that took you. And ever since I've been sailing around trying to keep tabs. We followed a couple of these vessels to the Coliseum and were able to locate you. Made a deal with the dragon riding individual that you likely saw outside, who helped us locate you and get you out. But in our time on the water as we were trying to find you, we did locate a very dark looking vessel. As we followed it to sort of ascertain its location and what it was, we spotted our old friend Galen. My device lit up, indicating that it was clearly him. This tracks his position and his location. We followed him around a bit before his vessel rose up out of the star sea of Nerono and disappeared into the ocean sky above. I believe that's our ticket out. Do you understand?
Obrek kind of nods and
Every, hmm?
Oh, sorry, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead.
So all we got to do is just follow them, right? To get out of here.
I'd like to sneak up on him and hopefully follow in his wake. Use whatever tunnel they create. And just stay behind and get out of here with him. Hopefully, it is my belief that it'll take us out of here and release us from the underworld. The energy that's our friend here, she points to the Goliath. The energy she saw swirling around that ship and around Desma himself indicates that he is dead and now serves the Erebos god himself. With that energy and that power, he's likely able to move in and out of the underworld as he pleases. So I know how to reach him. I know how to get to him. But once we get out, I'd like to kill the fucker. Would you support me?
Obrek kind of like looks thoughtful. Well, I suppose I'd help you as repayment. I don't think I'd be here without your help. I
This
think
man
it'd only
is
be right.
this man is likely responsible for your trials here. Likely responsible for your entry into the underworld. Either way, he's not a good person. You shouldn't feel bad about any of this. And whatever he is now is a shell of what he was. He's now just a servant of the dark god Erebos.
Makes sense to me then. Say no more.
Very well. So if you need anything, Bridget can help you out. She looks to the rest of the crew. Anybody else have any objections? Everybody pretty much nods. You definitely notice the crew around Ripley. Like Ripley herself seems pretty calm, not intimidated at all that you're currently sailing through the underworld. She seems pretty collected. Pretty much one of the first people you've seen aside from Frederick that has a semblance of organization. Like she knows what she wants to do. She knows how to get out of here, and she's willing to do whatever it takes in this situation. And everybody else, all of these individuals seem combat ready, experienced sailors, experienced fighters. There's a bit of fear in their eyes every now and then. Some of them. The Goliath herself seems very emotionless. A little bit of fear from the Elvish woman, but you can tell that she's pretty steeled. The Tiefling woman almost looks excited in a creepy sort of a way, like she's enjoying every minute of this, and she's been waiting for it all her life. Just a very giddy look in her eyes. And the male water genasi seems sort of sullen, sad but steeled, and ready for the fight, whatever comes. They've got a few other individuals with them, as crewmates sort of have gathered around. Everybody seems supportive. You hear a couple whoops, a couple cheers from some of these guys, weapons drawn up in the air. Ripley nods. It's like, all right, everybody just take positions wherever you'd like and get ready for a ride. I don't know what to expect, but be ready for anything. Crew starts to disperse and move to different areas of the ship. What would you like to do, Obrek?
Obrek would probably stay up on deck, still a little bit nervous about what's to come, but steeling himself for it.
Okay. So you sail for another few hours. You see that device that Ripley is utilizing every now and then gives a pulse, lights up, and they re-steer the vessel and change direction. You're sailing for some time. I'd say if you want to take a full rest, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
So just find a nice quiet place somewhere to lay your head back and maybe get your first decent sleep in a while. Even though it's not the most comfortable, it's at least you're not imprisoned any longer, and you seem to have some sort of a hope on a way out of this. Gives you pause enough to relax.
Does not smell anymore. It's wonderful.
When you wake up, you're being shaken very slightly, and you see Frederick above you. It's like, hey, wake up.
Mm-hmm.
We've located Desma. It's about to go down. Are you ready?
As I'll ever be.
All right. So I think I don't know if I'm supposed to tell you this, but I'm pretty sure Ripley's plan is to get behind him. We're already pretty close. Stay out of sight. follow him out, use whatever means he has of escaping. Once we get up there, I'm pretty sure she's going to drive this ship right into him. You know what I mean?
Obrek kind of thinks about it for a second and is like, "Oh, all right. That's is that a good plan?"
He sort of looks around at everybody's sort of like also in various states of sleep. Looks back at you. You know, as plans go, it's maybe not the best, maybe not the way I would do things, but in this situation, as long as it gets me the hell out of here, I'll do whatever she wants.
Oh, Obrek, agreed.
All right. When things happen, stay close to me. It's going to be a fight straight through. I'm pretty sure Vance is going to head right for Desma, but be ready for anything. I don't know what else is on board that ship. We've seen several of his past allegiances as well, but they seem to be under some sort of influence, some sort of magical control. They all glow with this unnatural purple energy. I don't like it. He begins to step away and move out. He's like, "Hey, you're some sort of a cleric, yeah?"
What was that?
He looks back at you as he's walking away. So you're some sort of a cleric, yeah?
Oh, yes.
How you feel about all this?
About being in the underworld.
Being in the underworld, sort of witnessing this god shit for the first time.
Well, I can't say I'm entirely happy about this whole situation, but it is something, isn't it?
He laughs. It's definitely something. That's sort of get exactly what you mean. All right, I'll see you out there, friend. And he continues off, moving up the stairs, out onto the deck. Would you like to join and move outside, back onto the main deck?
Yes.
Okay. So as you climb the stairs and move out, you see several members of the crew sort of very quietly lined up. That tiefling woman is up in the rigging, sort of holding onto one rope and standing very deftly on another. Blade drawn in one hand as the other one holds very tight. Looks like she's ready to fight. Everybody else is sort of lined up along the wall. Some of them are ducked down, peeking over the edge. Ripley herself is at the very front of the ship, sort of standing solemnly on the sides of the walls and looking straight off in the distance. Looking in that direction, you can't see the vessel itself, but you can see sort of a purple glow indicating that something's sailing out there in front of you, lost in this thick mist. You hear sort of a quiet command from Ripley. It's sort of telephoned back various members of the crew up to the tiefling in the rigging, who slides back, uses that rope with her blade to slide down to the deck behind the steering of the ship and speak to that Goliath woman, who sort of nods. You see a couple of the sails drop very quickly, and the ship sort of lurches and moves faster. You see finally that Genasi sort of at the back of the ship, channeling some spell work to create wind and sort of drive the vessel in various directions. You see him sort of glow a bit more, put a little more focus into his spell casting, and the ship lurches forward and pushes through the water at a much more reckless, faster speed. Frederick moves up, grabs onto the wall, looks to you, he's like, "Hey, you should hold on to something."
Obrek will take his advice and grip onto something nearby.
Okay. So yeah, you can grip on like the rigging and hold the wall as tightly as you can.
Yeah.
The ship continues to increase in speed. You see that glow in front of you start to move oddly. You hear sort of the sounds of rushing energy, and the mist itself begins to swirl and pick up and then lift up towards the sky. And you see finally the back of their vessel come into view. You see Ripley up in the front. She's giving various hand signals to sort of dictate movement to the crew in the back, who are sort of maintaining the movement of the ship. And she sort of pitches her hand to the side and drives forward 2 times. And the ship picks up in speed intensely. You almost lose control, like holding onto the rigging. You almost fall backwards as there's a massive gust of wind that Ganassi fires forth and pushes the ship like in a massive lurch forward. In front of you, what you now believe is Desmond's ship begins to lurch and rise up out of the water. You see the mist sort of swirling and cascading below the vessel and lifting it up. As you push forward and get closer to the ship, Ripley fires 2 cannons on her left and her right hand side with spell work. She just snaps her fingers, once to the left and once to the right. Cannons shoot off and fire hooks that latch into the back of Desmond's vessel. Immediately after that happens, your vessel starts to lurch and lift with his. She shouts, finally, gets down and holds to the front of the ship. From up above, you see the tiefling sort of run along the rigging, and multiple additional smaller cannons up on the mast of the ship fire off and latch multiple other hooks into the back and sort of lower sides of Galen's ship. You're sort of gripping on as your ship is dragged almost completely vertical up into the air and out of the water of Agonis below. The mist is swirling around you. You can feel the gust work stop, and the Genasi himself rushes up to the opposite side of the ship, holds on, and begins some sort of a spell cast towards the underside of your vessel as well, which seems to push it up, level it out just a bit, and carry it through the air behind Desmond's ship. You hear a bit of shouting from Desmond's vessel, as individuals in the back of that ship seem to clearly have noticed. And you see several bow shots fire from up in the air as those individuals are struck and fall off the back of Desmond's ship into the dark mist below. Looking up above, you see that elven woman with a short bow, armed, ready to take out anybody that might spot you. Just hold it on for dear life here.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So you finally break the mist, moving up into what's a very beautiful starlit area for a moment before you look up and realize above you is crashing upside down ocean-like waves. The water is clear enough that you can see up into it, where there are just creatures swimming above, and it looks like you're about to plummet face first into the underside of a floating ocean, so to speak. What's Obrek going to do here?
Obrek's gonna be screaming.
You hear shock from everybody else. You hear Ripley turn around and sort of shout some commands. Everybody latches on. You hear Frederick take a real deep breath. For the first time, he looks a little bit panicked at the situation, but he grabs onto the shed of the ship and latches himself in as hard as tightly as he can. Your screams are cut short as I hope you also take a nice deep breath.
Yep.
Okay. You feel that the freezing cold of the water. A wave comes in upside down, crashes into the side of your vessel as you penetrate and are underwater almost immediately. The water's pretty clear, but it's getting darker as you move up, being sucked and dragged and pulled almost from the bottom of the ocean, up and up and up and up and up. You begin to almost black out after 20, 30 seconds of holding your breath. Make a Constitution saving throw for me.
Is that just a D20 plus a Mycana?
You can just roll your D20 plus your con, yeah. But we'll go over your saving throws after this if you're unsure.
That is going to be 17.
Okay. So you're struggling to maintain consciousness, your vision sort of blacking out around you as you're just pulled by this force, struggling to hold your breath as you're dragged up. You finally, for the first time, see that sunlight, that natural sunlight that you love so much, that gift from Heliod, cascading down into the water. Doesn't look unnatural this time. Looks real. Feels real. You start to feel the water warm up as you're pulled forward. The front of Desma's vessel disappears as it crashes up out of the water above, and just 2-3 seconds later, your vessel lurches up, flies off the surface of the water, leaving the ship itself in the air for several seconds before it crashes nose first back down to the water. Make a dexterity saving throw for me.
That's gonna be a 4.
So as it strikes, you finally lose your grip, go sliding down the deck into the stairs. You see the elvish woman as well above from the rigging. She loses her footing, falls to the deck below, crashing onto her back. You see her sort of howl some curses. She drags herself back to her feet as the ship sort of finally steadies, rocks back and forth, forward and back, and begins to get carried along. You see Ripley cutting ropes off in the front that had been hooked into Desma's vessel, and she begins shouting orders, rushing back towards the wheel of the ship, right past you and up the stairs very quickly. You see the rogue. She grabs her bow. She fires a few arrows that also pierce through some of those hooked ropes, releasing your vessel from Desma's. Ripley gets up. The Goliath woman steps aside pretty deftly, respectfully, as Ripley, almost half her height, steps forward, takes control of the wheel. You see the Genasi get back up, move to the rear of the ship, and get back to his spellcast, throwing gusts of wind, forcing the ship lurching off to the left as Ripley steers with it. She shouts a second command at the Genasi, and you feel another lurch forward. Make another dexterity saving throw for me.
That is going to be a 7.
Okay. So you're just finally starting to get back to your feet as the ship takes this massive lurch forward, and you're thrown forward onto your chest, and you slide up. Frederick finally gets himself up, grabs onto your shoulder, yanks you up onto your feet. Sort of just like sobbing, soaking wet. Hair dripping around his face. Looks at you. He's like, "You having fun yet?"
Are we back?
I think so, but he looks off in the direction of the front of the ship, and finally looking forward, you see that you're about to careen right into the side of Galen's vessel, like middle side of the ship. Taking in the surroundings, you also see that you're on the outskirts of a very massive, unnatural-looking storm that is very reminiscent of the storm that took place at your first intro into the underworld. That storm that sort of created that whirlpool that sucked you back into the underworld. And there's also a third vessel that is careening towards Desmond's ship. As your vessel is about to make contact, you see that one sort of strike the side and lock in side to side with Desmond's vessel as several people sort of jump off onto the deck, rushing in for combat. Frederick looks back at Ripley. She sort of just nods at him. He's like, "All right, we're up." And he rushes up towards the front of the ship. Do you join him?
Yes. Also, can I take a 5? I need to go get water.
Yeah. This is like 10 more seconds. Give me 10 more seconds and we're pretty much wrapped here. So yeah, you join him, you rush back up, you stand up on the edge of the ship.
Right.
Frederick beckons you up, and as you see some of those other combatants starting to lock and engage with some of these purple magic shadowy individuals on the deck of the ship, you see the individual that is clearly Galen Desma get this massive shield drawn in a blade, as well as he slowly lurches up from a staircase at the midpoint of his ship, looks to the left, sees what's going on over there, and then looks over just as your ship makes contact with the side of his, driving itself halfway through, sending you sprawling onto the deck as well. And we're going to go ahead and take your break. We'll stop there.
All right. Yeah, I'll be right back.
No worries. All right, everybody else.
Yes.
Unmute die themselves.
The intro was for me.
Not entirely.
It was for me.
Right, sure. So we'll catch Ven up on this in a bit. So where we left off with the rest of your party, you had just been pulled into that side with your ship locking onto the side of Galen's ship. You all hop out onto the deck, combat ready to go. You lock eyes with Galen as he steps outside, but in a very sudden, stunning situation, from the opposite side of Galen's ship, another vessel comes lurching out of the water from underneath, shooting itself up into the sky, crashing back down on the water below, creating this massive cascade of water. In the moments of just stunned silence, as almost everybody witnesses this, that vessel crashes headlong into the opposite side of the ship, releasing some familiar faces onto the deck, others some unfamiliar, as additional, stunningly so, members of the Theros crew hop off and begin to join you in this bout. Now, I don't want to run this fight without Miasis. I think the last thing Ven said to us, actively trying to fix.
Ben is having more issues with Windows.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to do tonight.
Okay. So I think our best bet then would be to just, unfortunately, postpone till next Monday. I'm sorry, guys.
I'm back.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
We can simply just start a movie. I'm kidding.
If you want to. But yeah, Bob, I was saying we were missing one player. We're missing Ven or Miasis.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, I don't want to go through with this engagement because it's a pretty important one, especially regarding his character and their current situation and relationship with Galen Desma himself.
Right.
And it's just like we're sort of like reaching areas of the campaign where it is like an all hands on deck thing. Like everybody should be present, and I don't want to jump in and RP anybody's characters because there's a lot of like important things happening.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I'd say we'll stop there for tonight. We had a nice little intro sequence for Obrek.
Yeah.
Which the rest of you have seen for the first time as he came spilling onto the deck of Galen's ship opposite you. As you all next session we'll join with each other in this engagement against Galen. Bob, any questions, any thoughts about anything that transpired?
This was awesome. I'm sorry that I'm not the best at RP. I don't think.
Oh,
But,
you did fine, man. Yeah,
I
no.
think you did great.
Yeah,
You did.
You know,
great, yeah.
this is definitely my other D&D campaigns that I'm in are fucking weird compared to this one. So it's nice actually having a proper D&D setting.
nice. Yeah, I do things a little differently.
Weird means.
I've got my own vibe.
Yeah.
With how I run games, but I like to make things epic as possible. And
yeah, this is really fun.
Yeah, so like every session is not this. Like sometimes they're a little more chill and it's a little more
Right.
like laid back RP and exploration, and then sometimes there's a lot of craziness. But especially when I intro a character, I like it to be wild. So
Yeah. No, this was awesome. I'm vibing with this whole the whole story going on here. I like this is a cool campaign. I'm really excited to see more.
hell yeah, that's what I like to hear, man. I'm glad you had fun.
Just wait until you meet our group.
Oh yeah, no, that's gonna be fun. I'm already trying to fucking figure out how Obrek is going to feel about all of this. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's that's the reason I set it up that way, because he's sort of been thrust in a very unnatural, confusing situation, and he's literally been dragged through the shit.
Hell.
Oh, like yeah, dragged actual hell. Yeah. So he's going to be experiencing these things very like in his face, and it works for a new character because that's how you're going to feel naturally, is like what the fuck is going on, and that's how your character's going to feel too.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And yeah, so like make whatever calls you'd like. However you feel Obrek would be in this situation, don't be afraid to contend with some of these other guys and their viewpoints. Don't be afraid to contend with Savas, or like whatever the decisions are that are being made here moving forward. If you feel like Obrek would be against it, just be against it. Siren's character Harmony is pretty against some of the things that are going on, but she's Siren can say it better than me probably from her character perspective, but she's against it, but is rolling along for the sake of the party and because she doesn't really have any better to do right now, and she likes the chaos. I guess does that make sense, Aaron?
Yeah.
So yeah, like don't be afraid to be opposed to things. The only time, like I said, the only time I'm ever gonna like stop anything like that is if it's like just not fun for people. But otherwise,
Yeah.
I think you'll all be able to handle it just fine. And like I was saying before, Obrek's definitely got some reasons to go along with this. After your fight with Galen Desma, an emissary of Erebos, who is the polar opposite of Heliod, like the literal polar opposite of Heliod, the dark half of him. He's definitely gonna have reasons to roll along with this, and then you can basically be considered a part of Ripley Vance's crew at this point, and that'll be a nice springboard for you as well to sort of like make your judgment calls based on what they're doing. But yeah, feel free to play it however you want, and if you have any questions, just let me know. If you want to work on like any other character background development, just let me know. I'm always down. But yeah, that was great. You did great.
Yay!
You handled the fight well.
Yeah.
You RP just fine. I didn't have any issues there. It was all good.
You made my whole night throwing Frederick back in the mix.
Yeah, I knew I would. It was, I mean, so like with Briar, you've got a little bit of an extra perspective now of what's going on. So
Yeah, I sure do.
So yeah, no meta-ing.
Nope. No metaing.
But yeah, it's been my plan all along of like how I was going to play things out. I'm not going to say like you don't know the timing of when that's going to happen for Group 2, but
yeah, nope.
So just keep playing your characters naturally, and yeah, you can now a little bit of what to expect in the future.
Yeah, I mean we've already like talked about it. I think it's pretty set that we're gonna do the labyrinth unless like somebody puts their foot down on it.
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna set a lot of things in motion that isn't really gonna let meta even come into play.
Yeah, like I said, you guys are on very polar opposite tracks, and like what's happening here is really out of Group 2's control. No matter what you guys choose for your next game, it's going to set you on your own trajectory in a very there's no way that you can follow the same path as Group 1 now.
Nope.
So yeah, there's not going to be a lot of like meta opportunity, but you do have a little bit of a notion of that the one prison break to come. But don't let that affect your decision. Yeah,
yeah, 2 prison breaks.
Well, this one's more of a gladiator-esque break. It's
I want to go through a labyrinth.
Yeah, it kind of, man. Imagine if Harmony was in Group 2.
Oh gosh.
I genuinely don't know how that would go with Tacitus and Crix.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Why?
For sure.
Because they're both very strong-willed and not afraid to say "fuck you."
And Tacitus is a paladin, and Crix is just Crix. I think Crix would enjoy Harmony. I think Crix and Harmony would get along very well.
Yeah, I think they would, as long as she wasn't like posing a danger to them.
I think
Harmony, a danger
they'd work together. To anybody, yeah, right. Never. But yeah, Tacitus would definitely be a what the fuck is going on with this fairy type of thing.
Yep. To be like self-focused, I think she would probably still rank higher than Briar on the usefulness list.
Probably, yeah. He seems to have very little respect for Briar. Maybe a little more. Maybe a little more now that you did some solid damage in that last fight with the spider.
Yeah. I mean, I killed the last thing too, and it didn't do anything.
True. True. You just got to figure out what he respects. We'll see.
I think part of the problem is Briar doesn't care if she has his respect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think anybody cares if they have Tacitus respect either, which is like another thing making Tacitus grumpy. Oops, let me shut down the stream because we're wrapped up.